Hello everyone and welcome to our annual SNEED-CAST recap. We've had some time to gather our favorite moments from this past year where we've had the privilege of speaking with inspiring, knowledgeable, and charismatic industry leaders. It was no easy task to narrow it down, but we're excited to showcase some standout insights on business strategies, workforce and education trends, and the latest advancements in sustainability and social responsibility that shaped 2024. So, let's dive in. In this year's recap, one of the standout conversations we've had was with Jake Carls, co-founder of Midday Squares. Jake is a force of nature, a serial entrepreneur, Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree, 2024 Entrepreneur of the Year finalist for Quebec, and a passionate advocate for entrepreneurship. During our interview, he shared the incredible story behind Midday Squares, the functional chocolate bar that's redefining the snack industry, and how the company has built a brand rooted in authenticity and storytelling. Jake took us behind the scenes of navigating family dynamics as co-founders, yes, including group therapy sessions, standing strong against legal battles with industry giants, and creating viral moments like diss tracks and dance-offs that have captivated audiences and connected emotionally with customers. He also opened up about the challenges of entrepreneurship, from moments of discomfort to the toll it can take on mental health, sharing candid insights on overcoming burnout and staying motivated. Jake, you had mentioned that there's a lot of good, the bad, the ugly, that you guys like to clearly, publicize that, or not publicize, but share that with your customers or with your makeshift family. How would you say, or what would you say it's like working with your family?
So building out loud, first of all, and
Mm.
or publicly, is extremely difficult because you're going to deal with trolls. You're going to deal. You open your life up, or your personal space to to everyone, and people see it, and they can choose to judge it the way they want, and they can choose to be negative. They can choose to be positive, which most people are positive about it, but there are that negative piece, and that makes you feel sometimes bad about yourself. And if you're not confident, or you don't have the emotional IQ to deal with it, then it's very hard, right? And it's still very hard with people with high emotional IQ. But you know, so on top of that, that's a pressure. That's a lot of pressure in our own personal life, each one of us separately. Then you, on top of that, have a family part of business. So we didn't partner because we're family. And I always tell people this because because it's convenient. We partnered because my partners and I have very different skill sets. So each
Mm.
one of us complement each other's skills, meaning my brother-in-law is great at what I'm not really good at. I'm great at what my sister and brother-in-law might not be good at. So we actually combined equal a very strong tripod of skills, which make us great partners. And that being said, to protect our partnership, since day one, we've been going to see a therapist every week, mostly every week, in good or bad times. And what I mean by a therapist is he's literally a therapist, but he focuses on our communication and creating a zone where we have a safe environment to have very hard conversations, very difficult conversations, criticism, constructive criticism, things we disagree on. And we work through them with the same goal in mind, where we show up because we care about our partnership, we care about our family, we care about who we are as individuals, we respect each other. So every day, every time we show up together, it shows that we're committed to this partnership. And that's been for now 6 years straight we've gone. And it's probably been one of our best investments. And again, I caution people that are starting businesses to be very, very careful if they go into business with friends or family, because it's easier and you think it's better because you're comfortable with these people. But when you're in business, the amount of pressure, the amount of pain that you're going to go through changes a lot of things in a relationship. So you need to be very careful, if you're going to do that, that it's the right partner, but also that you're willing to protect that partnership, whether it's therapy or whether it's through coaching, whether it's through any type of investment to the partnership to actually grow and not just stay stagnant, is critical. And most businesses fail not because of bad product. Well, a lot of them unfortunately don't have product market fit, or capital, but it's actually because of lack of strength in partnership. So partners end up clashing, founders end up clashing, and they end up closing the businesses because of that. And ego gets in the way, tension builds. So what we did to protect that is go to therapy weekly, show up, good or bad times. Doesn't make a difference. Is that we're there to work on things and to become better leaders, better communicators, and better people.
In this episode of SNEED-CAST, we sat down with Michelle Carvel and Lydia Geddes from Lorax EPI to dive into the world of environmental sustainability and unpack the concept of extended producer responsibility, known as EPR. Together, we explored how EPR goes beyond regulatory compliance, driving innovation in product design, packaging, and global environmental stewardship. From the unique challenges faced by startups to inspiring success stories and practical solutions, this conversation offered valuable insights for businesses of all sizes looking to implement EPR principles effectively. If you had to give some advice to, say, startup companies or companies that are looking to adhere to EPR regulation, what are some features for a software that you would recommend looking for?
Well, you need to have, specifically in this field, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, you need to be able to collect in any type of data that is related to the particular product or packaging. So there are so many different pieces of data that you need to understand about the packaging or the product, so such as whether it's what material is used, the weight, what color it is, what size it is. And so you need to be able to find a database that can bring all of those different levels of information in and hold them all together and be able to apply local rules. So you can't just say, well, whatever we end up reporting in California will be the same as what we report in Oregon. It won't be. And so you definitely need to be able to be more granular in the information you're collecting and then be able to be granular in the information that's pushed out.
But when you work with companies like, say, Lorax API, do you guys, upon having a new customer, whenever you guys have that consultation, do you collect data or do you go through that whole process and figure out what information needs to be collected, if that makes sense?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So that's one of the first things we do up front with businesses. You know, the analysis piece of what a business already has in terms of packaging data, we offer as a service so that we can go into their data systems and have a look, compare it to what we know are the requirements of the programs, depending on where they need to report around the world. And we will then analyze that and produce them a report to show them where they are really on that kind of data scale of what they really need, what they have today and what they're going to be able to need for tomorrow.
In this episode of SNEED-CAST, we featured two powerhouse members of the SNEED team, Alexa, myself, our content marketing strategist, and Ken, our VP of Sales and Marketing. Together, we broke down the essentials of SEO and why it matters for small businesses, from the basics of SEO and its role in online success to strategies for standing out in the digital space. We've covered it all. We also discussed the difference between paid and organic search, the impact of Google AI on search intent, and shared expert tips to optimize your website. Plus, we also highlighted tools like Ubersuggest and SEMrush to help you stay ahead in the ever-changing world of SEO. Packed with actionable insights, this episode was a must-listen for anyone looking to strengthen their online presence and grow their business.
You know, many studies out there, Alex, I'm sure you've seen them, and Quentin too, point to that in terms of in advertising investment, marketing investment for business, investing in organic search and SEO and optimizing your website is some of the best money dollar for dollar you're going to get back for your business. So, you know, whatever you can do to try to improve those search results. And it's an ongoing battle, right? Google changes constantly. It's always trying to improve, just like the rest of us with our companies and our products. We always want to strive to have the best. Well, Google is always trying to get and be better and better and better. Sometimes we may disagree with what they think is better, but yeah, we're kind of at Google's whim there. So, but yeah, again, that's kind of, we certainly touched on a lot of different, we'll get into some of those things you mentioned there, Alexa, in terms of what they are and why they're important. So kind of where to start, right? We talked about if, you know, where do I get I don't know where to start. Get that SEO audit, get an expert in there and teach them a little bit about your business so they can tell you, they'll run an audit on your website where its flaws are, and then they can point out some low-hanging fruit for you. One of the things that's always going to be even with some of the new shifts, right, Alexa, now we just watched that webinar on Google and generative experience search, but keywords at the end of the day are always going to be important. Nobody is going to know the keywords that are important to your business and your industry better than you are, and what your customers are looking for. So let's talk about that keywords there, Alexa, in terms of how do you go about, of course, you can come up with your list of keywords, brainstorm them amongst your team, and then you have to figure out which keywords you're going to target. What tools are there out there in terms of like keyword research and whatnot that we can kind of recommend to folks?
Okay, so the top two that come to mind right off the bat, one of which we use heavily here and it has become my best friend, SEMrush. SEMrush is such a helper. You can literally plug in your competitors' domains and it'll pop up a list of keywords that they're currently ranking for. You could also do it the old school way. You can kind of go through their site and nitpick or make your own list based off of what terms are coming up heavily. So again, SEMrush is definitely one of the big ones. Uber Suggest is another one that I know I've used previously. I'm not sure if you've used it, Ken. Definitely helpful whenever you're conducting searches. Uber Suggest, the extension at least, will pop up keywords or relevant information on that site before you even click onto it.
And then from there, you can see a good. That's an easy. If you're not sure
Yeah.
which keywords you're looking for, what to target, go see what your competitors are targeting. What are they like? If your competitors are showing up at the top of search, Alexa, you've done a little bit of this lately. Go, well, what are they doing right?
Yeah.
They're doing something right to get to the top of their search, and they can help you kind of narrow down which keywords you need to be looking at. There's another great tool within Google. It has its own tool. Google will provide you analytics on search volume. So if you have an idea for the keywords that you want to target, you can look up those there, and then from there determine your strategy of how to prioritize. Now you talked. It was an acronym you dropped.
In this episode of SNEED-CAST, we sat down with Jay Call, widely known as the manufacturing millennial, to explore how we can attract younger generations, known as millennials, Gen Z, and beyond, to careers in manufacturing and packaging. With over 87,000 LinkedIn followers and 150 million views, Jake is a leading voice in advocating for modern manufacturing. We discuss the challenges of overcoming societal biases towards skilled trades, the importance of alternative education paths like apprenticeships and trade schools, and actionable steps companies, schools, and even parents can take to inspire the next generation to pursue these vital careers.
I feel like there may have been, you mentioned one of your recent posts about back in the 70s, there was a shift away from dual education paths, right? And this is one of my big pet peeves is where we are in this country in terms of a college for all focus that you called it. And I think that maybe that kind of ties 70s, right, is really when the massive push for outsourcing and going overseas with manufacturing. I feel like that maybe those two are hinged together at the hip in terms of, oh yeah, let's push all these blue collar jobs overseas and then only focus on white collar, pushing people into colleges and stuff because we don't need people in blue collar jobs anymore. And maybe that's just me making a very bold kind of causation correlation statement, but I feel like there's definitely some connection there between those two.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't just one thing that made this happen, right? It was multiple different decisions that were made that made a massive drive away from the back floor manufacturing. One of them was when we look at my parents' generation, the Gen X generation. A lot of them saw a massive career growth opportunity when they went and they got a 4-year degree, because the 4-year degree was not the traditional thing. So they knew that, hey, if their colleagues got 4-year degrees, they were most likely to be successful in whatever business avenue they took. So then they just said they took that exact same mindset and then they pushed it on their next generation, their kids' generations, the millennials and Gen Zs, and said the only way you will be successful is to get a 4-year degree. So then all of a sudden we saw that colleges and universities were saying, hey, 4-year degree is the way to be successful. So then our K through 12 education changed to make sure that the way that 12 years of school when you were a kid was focused on getting you ready for a 4-year degree rather than getting you ready for life, in my opinion. And I think that's the big focus. When I remember when I graduated from high school in 2008. And I was looking at a bunch of universities and stuff. I was looking at Michigan State, Purdue. I ended up choosing on Grand Valley, and I'm very proud that I did because they have a phenomenal engineering program. But the community colleges were all focused on not getting you ready for a career. They said, come and spend your money here for electives to then go and get a 4-year degree. So even the community colleges weren't even focused on, getting their 2-year degrees. They were focused on just getting all the gen eds out to go to a 4-year degree. All of the high schools and a lot of states were graded on their success by how many of their kids went to go get 4-year degrees. And I think the biggest thing that we're facing is 4-year degrees aren't bad. Bachelor degrees aren't a bad thing to get. I encourage it if it's in a lot of cases the right industry. if we're going out there and we're encouraging kids to get 4-year degrees, and in my opinion, non-STEM related fields, they're not hireable. And yes, there will be the circumstances that they will be hireable. But for the general consensus across the board, when you look at the fact that most kids graduating from a bachelor's degree, they either went there for 4 to 6 years. In fact, like the average 4-year bachelor degree is now taking over 5 years to complete, and they're graduating somewhere between $30,000 to $50,000 of student debt, and then their entry level position graduating is something like $38,000 to $42,000 a year. Something seems off.
Moving on, we had the privilege of interviewing Haley Appleby, co-director of the Sonoco Institute of Packaging Design and Graphics at Clemson University. With a background in packaging science, graphic communications, and a career spanning roles at Apple and Fisher-Price, Haley shared her journey into packaging design and some of her favorite projects. We dove into what makes Clemson's packaging program a national leader, the mission of the Sonoco Institute, and the innovative services it offers, including consulting, training, and cutting-edge tools like virtual reality and eye tracking labs. Haley also introduced us to the Brown Box Agency, the Institute's in-house package design service, and discussed how companies can collaborate with Clemson students through internships.
Understanding more about a new plate. There's so many things that they may want to know in and about the flexo printing process or something that they're doing, but they don't have the time or the bandwidth to offload their own presses and try it out. And so they can come to Clemson and we can mimic kind of their settings, what they are doing on our press, and spend some time working with them to kind of solve their problems, try out some of these new inks if that's what they want to do. We've done a lot in and around expanded gamut. We've done some around conductive inks, things around traceability, and even RFID. So there's so many things that we can do to help companies that revolve around a print trial. And we have a whole calendar that books really quickly. So if companies are interested and that is something they would want to know more about, would absolutely recommend reaching out quickly, because they are it's a popular service that we offer. And when it's not being used for that print trial, that press is used a lot also for, we do a bunch of industry seminars. So not only are we teaching undergrads, but we do a lot of continuing education. So for example, if a business major graduates and lands in the packaging industry, maybe in sales, and they need kind of a little bit of that technical knowledge and the lingo jargon, they can come spend a few days with us on campus and attend one of our educational seminars that we have. We have things around flexo. We have them around paperboard or corrugated packaging. And attend one of these seminars, and they get demonstrations and opportunities on that press to kind of understand how it works, see it in action, and stuff like that. So
very neat. And then kind of as a good little segue too, because I know you also have listed training programs, and I guess training both for employees and, like you said, professionals that are. Can you tell us a little bit about what some of those, besides the seminars, or any other potential training programs? Say there's a company out there that is expanding their workforce, and they need to kind of give them maybe like a crash course in certain types of packaging machinery. I'm kind of shooting from the hip here, but kind of curious what exactly Clemson offers in that regard.
So again, it can look a couple of different ways. And so these are very customizable options that if there's something a company needs. So certainly if they've got a bunch of employees or, people that they're looking to provide this education to or do a little bit of training with, if coming to Clemson doesn't feel like a very easy option, Clemson can come to them. So we do a lot of on-site consulting as well. So if it's easy to bring some of us into your company and your facility to do some of this training, that is also an option. We will absolutely travel and come in and kind of bring this training on the road with us. So it doesn't just have to be on Clemson's campus. We can certainly come to you as well. We do that with companies. That's not an uncommon thing. Just kind of as scheduling permits.
Right, right. Yeah, and with that on-site auditing and consulting, so we actually get this quite a bit. Sometimes we get customers that are calling us looking for kind of our advice and our consultation specifically around the date coding and the lot coding. But again, going back to that customer profile, folks that are just getting into manufacturing, they were filling jars of salsa by hand and labeling them by hand, and now they're upscaling and they're trying to get into automation, and they're green as paper. They maybe come from an IT background where they were working a corporate job, and now all of a sudden, this side hustle turns into their main hustle, and they're trying to establish manufacturing from the ground up without having a background in manufacturing. So that's where I thought that consulting and auditing that you guys offer with, for workflows and everything else, potentially huge for some of our customers.
And I think that could be helpful beyond just the Sunoco Institute. So a lot of the packaging faculty, even on the material side, the manufacturing side, the testing side, all offer that as a service. So, if even if it doesn't fall within, the more design side of packaging, the entire packaging program does offer, consulting opportunities like that if it is the right fit. So that is a common story we hear too. We get lots of requests from companies, moms, pops, new entrepreneurs looking for a package, trying to figure out what does it look like for my food product, or do I need to test this? What does shelf life testing look like? That is a very common, we get requests like that all the time. So that could be a very viable option.
And then I didn't dive too much into it because I wanted to hear your explanation, but you guys have an eye tracking lab.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us more about what that does or what that entails and what you guys are studying there or testing there?
Sure. So that's really heavy more on the research kind of component for package design that kind of happens within the Institute. And I would say that eye tracking is probably one of the more kind of common. That was really, really popular kind of at the start of the Institute. And now we're doing some other stuff too. But when, companies are designing packaging and they want to understand how it performs next to a competitor on shelf, does this green perform better than blue, or does adding, an embellishment of some sort, of tactile experience of some sort, does that add value? Does a consumer like that? Does that drive purchase? All of that can it can be studied through the use of consumer eye tracking. And so we have these very fancy glasses from Tobii that track your, kind of your eyes as you shop, and it measures how frequently, how quickly your pupils are moving. And so we can set up a study with a company, and we basically have a room that we set up to be a mock grocery store or an automotive store or a drugstore. I mean, it has been and flipped whatever we need it to be. But we send people in with a grocery list wearing the glasses, and they shop, and they have no idea what they are being tested.
Right.
What the item on the shopping list is that's being studied, but on their shopping list is the item we're studying. And so they'll shop, and they'll write down the items that they would purchase. So various brands. And then we ask them some questions about, what they shop. Did they buy this because they bought it from, it being a brand that they consistently purchase, or did they just like the packaging? But when we take the glasses off, we download the data from the glasses. And what we can see is, one, a heat map overlay of the shelf. So what did they look at first? What did they look at the longest? And then what did they ultimately choose as their item of purchase? Because a lot of times some of the most interesting data isn't what they actually purchased, but did they look at something for a long time? Did it capture their attention? Did they linger? That right there can be, the data that we're really looking for. And so we will change out the merchandise sometimes day to day, depending on, what exactly we're testing. and run a different group of people through the next day. So we can actually take design decisions and design choices by companies and quantify that. Is this a good choice? Yes or no,
Correct.
with data to back it before, a company were to go forward and spend the time moving it through production for it not to be a successful design decision on shelf.
Yeah, no, that's huge because I see it frequently I follow so many of these entrepreneurs and startups and whatnot on LinkedIn, and it's just fascinating though. Sometimes, especially some that have been around longer, maybe 5 years or so, kind of in that, and they'll show a breakdown of like their original packaging design versus like an updated packaging design, and how that had just a twofold or tenfold impact on their sales. Is getting that packaging design just right, getting the colors just right, getting your brand message in the right spot so that it registers for the customer. It's so critical, and it's the difference between a flop or a success sometimes on a retail shelf is just nailing down that design, because a lot of times, especially for some of these mom and pops that are just starting up, they're new brands, they're new to the customer, right? So they're looking, comparing that to Kraft or maybe whatever brand that they're familiar with, and now it's there's this interesting new ketchup over here. Is this something that I should try? And also myself being a big craft beer nerd, that's all that I do that catches my attention when I'm looking for craft beer is who's got a cool new label or what is it, and so it's really neat how you guys take the just applying that scientific approach to it, and not it just being like, I kind of like how this looks, but not having any quantifiable like, what does that mean in terms of impact on sales?
Yeah, on shelf, when you're kind of thinking about package design, it can't just be, I like this anymore. It has to perform, because that really translates to revenue. Such a huge deal, understanding and quantifying good design choices before going to market. And because of that, really that technology has become really common. A lot of the bigger companies have brought that in-house and are doing a lot of that themselves. So while we still offer that, especially, for smaller companies and really heavily on the research side of packaging for our graduate program, one of the bigger and more emerging kind of areas that we're doing fun research in is what we're calling emotion tracking and understanding the unboxing experience. So, we see a lot of these YouTube videos of influencers receiving packaging products and they're unboxing them on camera and kind of talking through that process. We can now kind of quantify that process and understand what the consumer may feel about the unboxing experience, and kind of put some data in and around that. So we've got an area set up in one of our labs where we've got a bunch of cameras, and somebody can come in with a package, set it on the table, unbox it on camera, and then we take those recordings and run it through this software, and it will actually analyze the muscle movements in your face and determine, are you excited? Are you frustrated? Are you angry? Are you surprised? And so, do you get that big aha? Do you not? How much of that is the packaging? How much of that is the graphics, the product? We can kind of analyze all of that and understand better about the unboxing experience for packaging.
In this episode of SNEED-CAST, we had the privilege of interviewing Brian Green, CEO of the Houston Food Bank. With over 20 years at the helm, Brian has grown the organization into the largest food bank in the world, distributing $200 million worth of food to over 800,000 people annually across 18 counties in Southeast Texas. We explored Brian's personal journey into food banking, the incredible impact of the Houston Food Bank, and how programs like corporate sponsorships, food drives, and volunteer networks make their work possible. Brian also shared insights on the future of food banking, the challenges of food scarcity, and the lasting effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Lastly, we discussed how the Houston Food Bank's ambitious expansion plans aim to double their distribution and increase community support by 2028.
Not the food banks, the school lunch and breakfast program.
Right.
So from a kid's standpoint, it's when the kids are not in school is where there's the greatest exposure. So the weekends, holidays, but especially summer. So for the weekends, we do a program called the Backpack Buddy Club. And this is very common for food banks to do, where we're trying to provide a weekend supply because it's just something that teachers report over and over again. The kid, you can see that they're getting antsy before the weekend. You can see that they're really in bad shape on Monday. It's not until they're starting to eat again that they recuperate. So there's lots of symptoms that are shown. Those are fairly expensive programs to do, so we target those kind of like the cases only where the teachers identify they do not believe that child is eating on the weekend. So kind of the worst of the worst cases. Okay, and then you shift to the summer months. We do what's called summer food service program, where we use our kitchen, which normally makes after-school meals, to support programs like the Boys and Girls Club and YMCA's. That the real goal there is to encourage participation in those programs by giving the kids a meal.
Right.
And sure, for some kids that may be the only dinner they would have had. But mainly what we're trying to do is keep the kids in that program because they're more likely to graduate, and there's all these nice metrics that these programs are able to show. But come summer, we kind of say, nope, all bets are off. We've just got to get the food to these kids for those households that they now have to come up with 2 extra meals a day. And they got to do it for an extended period of time, and their income doesn't go up because it's summer. So that's when we really need to ramp up, and that's when we do the summer food service program, where we, instead of making it just for the after-school programs, we kind of blow the thing up, and we work with literally hundreds of sites to do the distribution of these hot meals.
Okay. And then you had touched on adult hunger as well, and you said that that's 5% compared to the 1% for kids. What programs do you guys offer for, say, like our senior citizens or like veterans or just adults that wouldn't necessarily be able to get access to food?
Yeah. So most of the volume that we do is for families. Overwhelmingly, for all the food banks around the country, the food is going to families, and the families have kids.
Right.
So when you're doing that, you're providing food for the whole household. That's how the adults are getting fed. In addition to that, there are specific programs for seniors. So we have a senior box program that provides a supplemental amount of food each month. And so in Houston's area, for instance, we serve about 12,000 seniors a month that way. But the way we really, when you think about targeting, it's the partnerships that we have. And this is true for the Feeding America food banks all over the country. So we have in Houston, we have like 1,600 different partnerships, okay? The largest bulk of those are the schools. So we have the school markets, the Backpack Buddy Club, et cetera, where how do we get food in the households? The schools are these great resources in the neighborhoods. They know the families, and say they can help us target. For veterans, we work with veterans organizations. And so we supply them to be able to supply the veterans, but we also then take the referrals from those programs to get into the pantry system, okay? And then for wellness issues, it could be like people with diabetes, et cetera. We're working with the healthcare industry, where we work with health clinics, we work with hospital systems, where they identify the people who are having a wellness issue, who are also food insecure, and then they basically channel them into our system, and then we're able to provide them the feedback on are they actually getting the food they need, and they can track the results that way. So for kind of each group, the main way that we help is with the creative partnerships.
So we have talked about food insecurity and how it spikes during different seasons, but what about when we're dealing with pandemics such as like COVID-19? What was it like for the food bank here? What were you guys doing during that time?
Well, all the food banks experience a very similar phenomenon, and I've been through disasters before. There was a food bank in New Orleans, Katrina hit, food bank here when Harvey hit, et cetera. COVID was different than anything else we'd ever seen.
Sure.
The need spike was just crazy high. So if you go back, the first impact that happened was the shutdown, right? Okay, everybody stay home except for essential workers, whatever that meant. The people who got hit by that were the hourly workers. Most businesses continued to pay their salary workers even though they were shut down. But the people who were hourly tended to not get paid at all. Well, by no coincidence, that's also the people who are less likely to have any savings. So it's like in the Houston area, which is fairly common, 46% of the households do not have $400 that they can call upon in an emergency, okay? So they have no cushion. So if something goes wrong, they're just in trouble almost immediately.
Right.
Well, that's the phenomena that we saw when we had the shutdowns. Unlike I'd never seen this even in a natural disaster, where just suddenly all these people, their income just went to zero just like that. And they were in trouble. They were in serious trouble. So the lines just went crazy long immediately. In addition, we had so many of our partners shut down because, again, nobody knows how's this going to work. Nobody wants to die. And so, oh my gosh, we got to, stay isolated. We can't operate because these are mostly run by volunteers, because that's how we get most of the work done here. And this is true for food banks around the country. Most of our work is done by volunteers. Well, the volunteers, they weren't coming. So like, oh my gosh, we have all this extra work. We don't have the volunteers. We now have to kind of like make it, less efficient for the staff because we're trying to keep people separated. So we had to bring in other people, come and do that. The National Guard came in. We got funding to hire temporary workers, to kind of supplement the volunteers. But then we had to where's the food going to come from? Because you can't just, there's a lot more need, therefore we have more food. Well, at first, it was kind of, you could call it serendipitous. You think about what happened to all the restaurants. They all had to shut down.
Right.
What happened to the food that was going to go to the restaurants? It had nowhere to go. So that became an immediate source of food, right? And then the community and the government saw, oh my gosh, the food banks, they're just getting absolutely slammed. We need to get them food. We need to get them funds. And so we were able to then ramp up. And then we had to just change our techniques. We went to, first thing we did is we went away from the classic pantry style setup where you go inside.
Right.
People didn't want to go inside. So we went to a trunk model, where you had the car, it was like a curbside.
Yeah.
Right? And then in order to do the kind of volume, we ended up doing these huge distributions. We called them super sites, where we'd handle as many as 10,000 people or families at once.
In this episode of SNEED-CAST, we sat down with Corey Connors, a leading voice in sustainable packaging and the Director of Sustainable Packaging at Aurora Packaging Solutions. Corey shared insights from his impressive career, including his work with the Packaging School, where he serves as a professor of sustainability. We explored the latest trends in sustainable packaging, key takeaways from industry events like London Packaging Week and the Sustainable Packaging Summit, and the evolving attitudes of European and U.S. CPGs. Corey also gave us a glimpse into the future of extended producer responsibility, known as EPR, in the U.S., and what makes the Packaging School a valuable resource for both professionals and students. This episode is packed with valuable knowledge for anyone interested in the future of packaging.
So many things are changing. It's a daily update. It's an hourly update with what's new and what's coming out. Things like monomaterial packaging, higher post-consumer recycled content. The shift to paper-based packaging is still in effect and has been leveling out a little bit as people find it difficult to use paper in certain situations. They're using plastic still with high post-consumer recycled content instead, and making sure that their packaging is recyclable to accommodate new extended producer responsibility laws, which are changing all the time.
And then since you have been in the industry for 26, 27 years now, what would you say has been one of the most notable differences from when you started till now?
Well, I think people are taking this seriously now. I grew up in the Northwest of the USA, and especially in Portland where I live, we're very focused on environmentally friendly or green packaging is what we used to call it. But it wasn't really taken seriously because it was more expensive. But now the shift to sustainable packaging, which is basically the same thing as green and environmentally friendly, has taken hold in a big way because people are ready. They're ready to move to those things. EPR laws are forcing people to do that. And frankly, that's really good news.
So talking about EPR, what would you say the future of EPR looks like here in the U.S.?
Yeah. Well, I hope it becomes one thing instead of 50 different rules, state by state. It's becoming very difficult to understand. There are great companies like Lorax EPI that can help you with that kind of a question, like how is this law going to affect me in all of these 50 countries that are enacting new laws and 50 states that are working towards different laws. But it's becoming very confusing and very difficult. So what I think will happen is people will look towards states like California for the most aggressive changes and then accommodate those with their packaging. And then that will become their packaging nationally because they don't want to have different packaging for each state.